Oh, that water is balling.
Yeah.
So we are making coffee first. Woo! Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's my pokey fire stick. And this is for grabbing hot things off of the fire. Yes, sir.
Alrighty.
Is it hot?
Oh, it's warm. Hopefully it ain't too warm.
I'm glad mine boiled first. I like my coffee to be hot, hot.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
just
hot.
need the handles to cool off, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah, mine's perfect temp.
Alrighty. Alright, everybody. Welcome to the Millstone Project. I'm Ben.
I'm Spence.
Today we're going to go over what to look for in a bug out location, and we're going to talk about who should bug out versus who should be looking to get home.
Yeah, we put some notes together, basically the who, what, when, where, and why, and how. So we'll go over each topic individually, and we'll discuss it in a little bit of detail, and then we'll move on. The first topic that we would like to discuss is who needs to bug out. We have a few questions and that you basically need to ask yourself, and we're going to ask the question, and then we're going to discuss those questions individually.
Mm-hmm.
The first question I have is, do I have a sustainable water source? Ben, do you want to go in on
Yeah,
what?
so do I have a sustainable water source? What does your water source need to look like to be considered sustainable? So, especially out here in the country where we live, you got a lot of people with wells. And wells can be sustainable, but you have to have a power source to run that pump, or you need a hand dug well to be able to dip water from said well. Do you have a spring on your property? Do you have a creek on your property? Is there a pond? Now, standing water is not always great as a sustainable water source. You will definitely 100% need to boil standing water. It will
It,
need to be filtered, and it would be very wise to boil standing water.
yeah, the smaller the size of the pond or lake, the more susceptible to contamination it is. If even a small animal dies in a 1 acre pond or a 2 acre pond, you could potentially have the entire pond contaminated, and you would definitely need to boil it. And you really don't know if something has crawled in that pond and died. So, unless it's a moving body of water, it's always a safe practice to just boil it. The next question I have is, do you have a sustainable food source?
Yeah. So if you are in the midst of bugging out and you have just arbitrarily decided, like how it looks we're sitting now, I'm going to go to a random spot in the woods and I am going to pitch a tent or a tarp and I'm going to just live in the woods when I bug out. What are you going to eat? How are you going to get what you are going to eat? Because it's not always reasonable to carry a firearm large enough to hunt with. So, also, your presence in the wood is going to determine if there's animals around to hunt and what you're going to be able to find while hunting. And hunting, for the typical American will not be a sustainable food source.
No, and another thing is the longer that you're in the woods, the more your footprint is known to these animals.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you're going to have to use the restroom, and every animal within a large vicinity is going to know that you're there, and
Yes,
they will stop coming to that location, which means you're going to have to potentially move locations, either to hunt or become nomadic and just follow the food,
exactly.
which can cause more issues.
Well, and then if your bug out location is like our location, um, I own the bug out location.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a small amount, or what I consider a small amount, of livestock. We have goats, we have a couple pigs, we have ducks, chickens, and turkeys. Now, for those to be sustainable, you need to be able to feed them. Goats, they of course eat grass, they eat leaves, they eat brush, and so they're pretty sustainable on their own as long as you can keep them hydrated and you don't have them in too small of an area. Now, your chickens, they're a little harder because free range chickens need a lot more access to grass, bugs, seeds from plants that have fallen. So, for them to be sustainable, they need a little more management than my goats do. And the pigs, of course, pigs eat anything. And so you can feed the pigs like the goats. They
Yeah,
can graze, they can eat the leaves, and they also root into the ground to find tubbers, grubs, and other bugs that they can eat.
yeah,
Acorns.
and pigs actually, um, they pair well with chickens because as they're rooting, the chickens will follow the pigs
Mm-hmm.
around, and they'll scrape through the where the pig is rooted, and they're finding bugs and worms and grubs or
Yep.
whatever it is that the pigs leave behind.
Yep.
And goats are probably one of the easiest livestock to maintain in a, I guess, apocalyptic scenario just because they eat such a broad range of vegetation.
When they also hydrate, they can also hydrate through eating vegetation
Yep.
versus larger hooved animals like cattle. Cattle consume so much water. And goats, they consume a minimal amount of water because they can hydrate off of the greenery and the foliage that they're eating in the
Mm.
first place. And so they're a little less managed because of their efficiency at processing water from the foods that they eat. Because water, everything in life
Needs water.
needs water.
Yep. All right, so you've asked yourself whether you have a sustainable water source and whether you have a sustainable food source. If the answer may be yes, but then you have to ask yourself is do you have the means to secure it?
Yep.
Um, one way or one, I guess, example what it may look like where you may not be able to secure your food and water is if you live in a large neighborhood or a large city that's extremely densely populated, every and whether and even if you've done everything right, you've prepared yourself, you have, dug yourself a well that you can hand pump water from. You have maybe chickens and a garden enough to sustain your family. Well, everybody else is going to want your food because a majority of the population
Is
aren't.
not going to be prepared.
No, they're not, and they have no interest in preparing because unfortunately, a lot of the population has that mindset that I don't need to prepare because I will just take from those who have.
Well, and some of them just, let's be honest, in America, we're spoiled.
Yeah.
Some of them just don't think anything will ever happen to cause them to have the kind of need
Mm-hmm.
to be prepared. Like, it has not been that long since the Great Depression.
No, and
Like, we're at what, 100 years? The Great Depression was in the 20s.
yeah, and
So,
and we're not only talking about apocalyptic scenarios. Now, if you are paying attention to the times, then you probably can see that things are changing, and not so much for the better. But there are so many situations that are not apocalyptic scenarios
yep.
that you can still be prepared in this manner and have a bug out location that's not maybe the location that you're at that you may need to get to. And some examples of that are like the fires that are going on in LA.
Yep. And the
Those,
hurricanes
yeah, like
recently.
these people are, they have to relocate to another area. And a lot of them are, they're living out of tents, unfortunately.
Mm.
And, if you were a little bit better prepared, then maybe you would have somewhere ready that you could go to, another location that you could go to,
Mm.
and you would be thriving instead of just surviving,
Yeah.
which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Well, and also, like you said, not everything is going to be an apocalyptic situation. The Great Depression wasn't an apocalyptic issue. The Great Depression was an economic crisis.
Yeah.
It was an economic crisis that forced people to save every bit of scrap that they could possibly save to survive. Every bit of jars were literally being reused from original food to can new food.
Mm-hmm.
The burlap sacks
And
for flour and rice were being used to stitch clothing for children.
yeah,
So much
and
so that the people who made those goods started putting floral print and other designs on them so that mothers could at least have cute or pretty clothes for their kids
mm-hmm.
and not just brown sacks.
Yeah,
Like,
and that was during a time where things came in glass jars.
yeah. And well, they actually standardized some of their glass jars during the Great Depression because they were not standardized. And so they standardized those jars to fit the ball lids and rings
To be reused.
to be reused. And then, of course, once the Great Depression was over with, everyone went back to their own proprietary jars and proprietary lids. So they're no longer reusable because they don't want you to reuse them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we look for goods that come in glass jars, like our salsa. It takes a standard ball, lid, and ring. Our pasta sauce, same thing, standard ball, lid, and ring.
Yeah, you're already paying for the jar.
You're already paying for it.
You
And
might
so
as well be able
now
to reuse it.
we wash it, delabel it, and set it aside with our other jars for future use when we need them.
I think another important thing to discuss is the fact that in the 30s, people already put food away.
Yes.
They already knew how to do a lot of the things that it took to survive in an event that they would need to do these things to survive.
Yep.
We have come so far from that now. We're so far removed from that because of grocery stores and stuff like that. Most people don't know how to hunt, fish, farm,
Trap,
trap, forage.
tan.
Yeah, I mean,
Most people can't start a fire without a lighter.
yeah,
And hey, they're still going to make lighters in an economic collapse. So you'll still be able to buy a lighter.
Yeah, and you can store
And
a whole lot of
you can
lighters.
store a whole lot of lighters, and it doesn't have to be a big lighter. Let's be honest. Now, they are typically considered the best, most reliable disposable lighter.
Yeah,
But you can buy a pack of those really cheap clear plastic lighters for almost nothing and just store them. Now, unfortunately, some of them just quit working halfway through and they still got fluid in the bottom of them.
yeah,
But, they just, for some reason, they just seem to depressurize.
yeah. I mean, sometimes you get what you pay for, unfortunately.
But the cool thing about a lighter is, as long as it has the flint and the striker is still working for it, you can learn to make a fire
Yeah,
with no fluid in a lighter.
yeah. As long as you have some dry tinder, you
Mm-hmm.
you have the means to make a spark.
Yep.
Um, moving on would be okay. So we've kind of touched on this, but what is needed and where to bug out. So we've touched on the water source, the food source. Going back to water source, it could be a creek, river, or spring fed lake, a hand pumped well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a food source could be, um, but not limited to, livestock, poultry, even saved food.
Cultivated foods like corn, beans, all
Yeah,
that stuff, gardens,
garden.
all that's included.
Yep.
We didn't go over gardens,
No, but
but
a garden is important.
Americans won't meat.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and hunting, but not exclusively hunting.
Yeah. So, I mean, now there's enough game that exclusively hunting is sustainable for somebody that knows how to hunt.
To survive,
But like, no, no,
not
no, you
thrive.
can thrive. There, I know families right now that they just hunt and grow their food.
Oh,
But
they're
he
living
hunts
living.
everything. He hunts deer, he hunts duck, he hunts quail, he fishes, he hunts dove. So he's not just hunting one species of animal
Yeah,
to
but
thrive.
and
Like he's hunting rabbit on top of that. Like so he's bringing in a ton of wild game and not just a subset of wild game. Versus most people are like, oh, well, I'll just hunt deer throughout this season, and that'll be enough to keep my family alive.
yeah, but in a situation where everybody is going to need to acquire food
You
outside of a
need to
grocery store,
understand to cultivate.
yeah,
Yes,
because now you have more competition for that game. You have more competition for those fish. Um, you're not the only ones in the woods hunting.
yep. Well, and that goes even to you think about cultivating uh, sustainable food. Fish can be a sustainable food source if you understand how to raise fish. So you can build a fishery out of those 250-gallon IBC
Oh
totes.
yeah, I mean,
And so you could go down here, catch some catfish, and save some catfish and let them breed. And you could build a sustainable fishery. We have a missionary in Honduras, I do believe, and they raise tilapia in those plastic
yep.
caged 250-gallon IBC totes
hmm
as a sustainable food source to feed the local community there.
And I've seen people who plant gardens on top of those.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
And
Hydroponics.
yep,
Yep.
hydroponics. They use the water from those tanks to water the garden,
Yep.
and the fish waste that's in that water is so good for the garden,
And
and they just cycle it.
a small enough group could technically collect water, but it would still have to be pre-planned. But you're going to need a
You talking about
2,000 gallon.
rainwater?
Yeah, you're going to need a 2,000-gallon tank to collect water to be sustainable through rain.
There are states that it's illegal to collect rainwater.
There is states where it's illegal to collect rainwater, but at the point of bugging out.
You talking about?
But that's my problem is it has to be pre-placed.
Pre-planned.
Pre-placed and pre-planned.
Yeah.
Because if you show up in the middle of a bug out situation and there's already no water there, even though you have the tank, it's not sustainable.
No. No,
So,
because now you're waiting on it to rain.
yeah, you're waiting on it to rain.
Get,
So you better be able to go acquire a lot of water
or know how to do the
really
rain
quickly.
dance.
Yeah. Good luck with that. That is some decent instant coffee.
I like it.
So
Um.
all right, back to the
Yeah.
next on the
So
list.
along with the food source and the water source, it's also important to have a pre-standing shelter. A pre-standing.
Yes.
You want something already there, even if it's just something as simple as you putting a camper on a plot of land that has the water source and the food source on it, and leaving it.
Yep.
It needs to be maintained, but that's something easy and simple, and could potentially be fairly inexpensive too.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to build a house.
So in the instance of like bugging out to get to your location, it is fully acceptable to expect, hey, I'm 2 states away from home and I know I have to get home. It is fully acceptable to have a tarp in your bag to set up a temporary location along your route. But even those routes, you need to pre-plan. Hey, I know I'm going to be in Mississippi for the next week. How am I getting home if everything goes crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And how long will it possibly take me to get home? 24 hours? 36 hours? 48 hours? You know, is it going to take me a week to walk from Mississippi to my home in Alabama?
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to plan. Um, every time you go on a trip, you don't necessarily have to have some extensive plan to get home
No,
from
you just
every
need to
single trip.
understand how to get
Yeah,
home. That's the biggest
if
thing.
you have the understanding and the means for the travel, then the planning can be done on the fly.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's much better to have a plan in advance, but you know, when we go on vacation, I mean, I most normal people don't sit down and plan, how am I going to get home if something crazy happens?
No.
We do.
Well, I don't plan on how to get home, but I already but that's because I already understand how to get home.
Okay, I'm that guy then.
You know, like I understand, I know the route that I came.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that my whole family currently is not in the state that they can trek from where we're at to the road, through the woods some more, over a ravine, through the woods some more, and now we're home 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
You know, like as to where I can do that.
Yeah. You can only move as fast as the slowest person.
I can only move as fast as the slowest person. And now I'm gonna stay close to the roads.
Yeah.
If at all possible. Because they are a reasonable guide for me not to have to slap down a map, grab my compass, and plot a course home.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is more of a seer situation where you survive, evade, resist, escape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, hopefully, especially within the first 48 hours, going to need to avoid or resist anyone because a lot of people aren't even going to realize what's happening.
Yeah. And when we're talking about going on vacation, you know, you don't you don't plan a vacation around, let's say, if you know that potentially something really catastrophic could happen. A hurricane is going to hit Panama City. You're not going to plan a vacation to Panama City.
You should not plan a vacation to Panama
So,
City. There are people that do, but you
yeah,
should not. Highly
surfers.
suggestible not to do so.
Yeah, so realistically, that is planning, in itself.
Yeah.
Um, let's see where we are. The presenting. Okay. Also, a fuel source is important, and when I
Yes.
mean fuel source, we're mainly talking about wood. In an apocalyptic scenario, your cooking is going to be done on wood. Your heating is going to be
Well,
done with wood.
and even in an economic crisis, like you think about inflation, right? How much is electricity going to cost during an economic crisis if you have hyperinflation? So minimizing the use of that electricity even in an economic crisis
Oh yeah.
is important. And so I have a fireplace in my home. It's not great for cooking because it's essentially a mobile home fireplace from 1992.
Yeah, but
But
we're gonna be putting in the
I
wood
have a
burning
wood
stove.
stove set aside to install. It's already got new fire bricks in it. I believe it uses the same size chimney that is currently in my
Hmm.
fireplace. And so that is going to turn into a major communal area for the family because you think you're going to be warming your house with it as much as you can during the wintertime, no matter if it's a apocalyptic or economic issue. And it is not designed for exclusively cooking on it, but you can cook on it. And so there will be some times where meals come only from it and not an electric stove or from an outside fire because
Hmm.
it's 13 degrees outside. Who wants
Yeah.
to go outside and cook?
Yeah.
And so you slap a Dutch oven on top of it, you make some type of slow roasted soup,
Yeah. I mean,
and that's your sustainable cooking source
or just a
and fuel
cast iron
source,
pan.
or a cast iron pan. Now there are some very specialized heat sources that use oil, and a lot of them are designed to use motor oil and vegetable oil and all this stuff just mixed together. Now, if you have a sustainable food source, you probably have a sustainable fat source.
Hmm.
And you could, in an emergency, probably take something like lard and put it in this thing. And as it heats up and it melts the lard, it would burn and potentially you could heat your house. But
Yeah.
that's not sustainable to the point of wood. Wood is the most renewable, sustainable
No, and
heating source and fuel source.
and lard, though it could be used for that, like
It
you
should
you
be
want to
a
you want to
physical fuel source for your body.
yeah, you want to eat it.
Yeah. You'll want to eat it. You'll want to cook with it. You'll want to use it for oil in your pan so your food doesn't stick. You'll want to use it for making breads and such. Cookies on the occasion.
Cakes.
Cakes.
So once you have this location in mind and you have it planned, you may even have it prepared. Um, the next task will be to get to this location.
Yes.
Um, in a non-apocalyptic scenario, a lot of times you get warnings, whether it's hurricanes, fires. Like, obviously nobody plans for their house to be burned down from, say, an electrical fire,
But it happens.
but it happens. And if you have another location, then you have somewhere to go
Mm-hmm.
to lay your head down that night.
Yep.
It's like an insurance plan.
Yep.
Um,
Or even like my property, right? We have three living, three dwellings on my property. So if something happened to my house, we have immediate shelter to go
hmm.
to. Is it going to be fun? No. My grandmother lives in one, and my mother-in-law and brother-in-law lives in the other. One is a one-room cabin that is 24 foot by 24 foot. It is a kitchen and living room that are open to each other and an enclosed bathroom. Now, it's a decent sized bathroom, but a family of six is not going to be comfortable
With one.
moving in
Yeah.
to a family of two.
With
like
one bathroom.
with one bathroom. Now my grandmother's is right next door to that, so that's nice.
Yeah.
It would be really easy to go in and out. Now that is a 2 bedroom, double wide, with a lot more space. It has a full dining room. It has a full kitchen with a breakfast nook, 2 bathrooms, and 2 bedrooms.
But ultimately, it's a roof over your head.
It is a roof over your head.
That's what you want. That's what you need.
If necessary, I'll go to the goat barn.
Yeah. So you want you not only want to plan the location, but you want to plan how to get to the location. So if you have pre-planned routes, and I'm not sure, some of you may be familiar with a PACE plan. It's the primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So the more routes that you have to get to your specific location, the better. Because you never know. In an apocalyptic scenario, you probably don't want to take the interstate.
Yeah, because say you've got the radios are still working, you're listening to them, and they're like I-85 is completely shut down.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a car moving on I-85. It is completely backed up. Do not take I-85 anywhere. Well, now you know if I-85 was my main route home because it's literally the shortest path first. Well, you know not to go down
Yeah,
85.
you pick another route
You
because
pick
you
one of your
have
alternate routes.
yeah you have other routes available.
Yep.
Um, and it's easier to do that, to plan these routes from locations that you go to regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Work is a probably the prime example of somewhere that you go to regularly, and you spend a lot of time there. So you know, more than likely, if something happens, you're either going to be already at home or at work, more than likely.
Yep.
So having these pre-planned routes from locations that you are regularly is important. Also, it's important to plan the methods of travel. Um, we were talking earlier off camera. The obvious um, choice would be buy a vehicle. You want to be able to get as far as you can, hopefully all the way to your location in a vehicle. It's the quickest way, it's probably the safest way.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other methods. You have electric bikes. You may even have to hump it.
Yeah.
That's probably worst case scenario.
Well, and then if you look at worst case scenario, I've got to hoof it. I typically wear square toe cowboy boots
Mm-hmm.
or square toe work boots, whatever you want to call them. They don't have great ankle support, let's be honest. They don't tie.
Yeah.
And so in the back of your vehicle, it may be smart for you to simply have a
Yeah.
laceable boot.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, tennis shoes are fine, but a laceable boot is a little more durable. So
And
if you have to go off the beaten path to get home, you can crank them strings up
they have that ankle support.
and you have that ankle support to go ahead and get you through the woods, and you can climb over things reasonably with them, and you will be good to go.
And it's probably worth spending the extra money
Oh, yeah, of
on a
course.
good pair of boots,
You
because
know,
even if you had to walk the roads.
50 to $100 is a reasonable price
Oh
for
yeah.
a good, decent pair of hiking boots.
Oh yeah.
I really like the military style hiking boots with the low profile sole because they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
They're not heavy. Heavy isn't really going to be that big a deal if you're trying to get home, except for the fact if you're not used to wearing a heavy boot, you're going to get a little more fatigued.
Yeah.
And really, if you're having to hoof it, you don't want your feet and ankles fatigued.
No.
Because if it's not something you're used to, you're more likely when your ankles and your feet are just like, I'm tired of walking in these boots. You're more
Yeah.
likely to roll an ankle.
But to be fair, in a situation like that, you're not going to be trying to rush. You should
No,
not be
you
rushing.
should not be rushing. There should
You
be no running. It should be a slow, steady
Yeah,
pace.
take your time. You don't want to get injured.
Hmm.
An injury could be catastrophic.
For you or your family.
Yeah.
Because in our instance, um, my wife knows how to cook. She knows how to clean. Uh, she knows a decent amount about handling a gun.
Hmm.
But when it comes to living a more primitive lifestyle, I understand more. And if I don't make it home, there's a better chance. I say better chance. That's probably not the correct verbiage there, but there is a. It is more likely that they don't survive reasonably.
Yeah. So and that could be another topic of discussion is, when we're talking about planning for these situations, you know it's important to discuss these topics with your family, because even if we're not talking about a situation like, an apocalyptic scenario or anything like that, but just if something happened to you, you know and I'm speaking like I'm speaking to just to men, but um as a man, if something happened to me, what's my family going to do? How are they going to be supported? um you know Help me out here, like, you know you want, it's just like life insurance. You They may be okay financially, but there are other things that you want to talk to your family about, just in case
Yeah,
you're not around.
yeah. Well, they need to understand how to do these things themselves.
Hmm.
It's one thing if I'm the most proficient person at it and they just have an understanding of it, but if they have no understanding of how to do these things at all, you don't have any backup.
Yeah.
You don't have any insurance. You don't want to be teaching your family to survive in the middle of needing to survive.
Yeah.
They should already know a little bit, and then you can build off of it in the midst of the surviving
Yeah.
effort.
I just thought of another
Um,
example. So
that smoke was getting me for a second there.
yeah,
That's why when you asked for help,
it's all blowing your
I
way.
couldn't help when you asked for help.
So Ben lives on a farm, so he has the livestock and the poultry to take care of every day. If he was the only one to do that, and uh, didn't teach Krista how to do it, then even if it was just something as illness or injury that
Mm-hmm.
took him out, where he's bedridden for, a week or two, who's going to feed the animals? Who's going to water the animals? Like, they're living things. They have to eat. They have to drink.
Yeah, and it's one thing to you know force them to skip a meal, so to
Yeah.
say, one day, but
Be
like
careful, Peter's listening.
when they are literally depending on you to live, they need to be fed on a regular
Oh yeah.
basis. You can't be like, oh well, the main caretaker of the farm is down, everything's not going to get fed for the next week. Like they need to
Yeah, they'll be
understand, or
fine.
even um, we had somebody purchase a rabbit from us. And, we went over, hey, this is what they eat. This is about how much they eat. This is how much water they typically drink. And they got it. They were taking care of it. And then they charged their kids with caring for this rabbit. And rabbit passed away. And so they were, well, it had water. What about food? Blah, blah, blah. And they found out that the kids were literally just going out there and scooping like not even a handful of food every day and just putting that little bit in there instead of like a cup of food.
They were slowly starving.
And so the children slowly starved this rabbit to death. So they were feeding it every day as children who were not fully educated on how to feed the rabbit.
Yeah.
So that goes even for the farm here. They need to understand how much food is enough and how much is too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the goats aren't going to waste food. The goats are going to eat every single grain they can get their little teeth on. But chickens, you can feed chickens too much. So if you throw chicken feed out and it's too much chicken feed, it's just going to it's going to absorb moisture, it's going to puff up, and the chickens are just going to scratch through it and turn it into dirt instead of eating it. And so it is extremely important for the people who are at least in the immediate community to understand how to help take care of the livestock.
All right. So that was pretty much, that covers the who, what, where, why, and how. We have a couple other things that we would like to discuss when it comes to planning.
What's next?
The list. Having a list of items to take with you is important. It can be a handwritten list. You can type it out. You can get as technical as you want, but you want a list of things that you want to go with you in the event that you have to evacuate or leave the area, and list these things by priority.
Yep.
Like you want the most important things at the top of the list, because if you're on a timeline or if there's a time crunch, you want to grab the most important things, and if you run out of time, then you leave some stuff behind, but at least you got the most important things.
Yeah.
And that, like a fire, you know, if your house catches on fire and you have a list, more than likely you've made the list, you memorized the list, um, and you know where these items are. You can go grab them. You know what's more important than other things. But in a situation to where space is limited, let's say, you can only fill a vehicle. Well, then of course you're gonna start at the top of the list of the things of priority, and you work down the list until you just run out of room. And then
Yeah, you also need to understand what you can fit.
Yeah.
Like your list needs to cater to what is ultimately necessary. And say I'm taking the Sequoia with 6 family members total. What is going to fit in that vehicle with my 6 family members? And obviously, like it's an SUV, there's a roof rack on it. And so, are any of those items able to be strapped to the roof of the car? Or are they all items that fit in a bag like this? And I need to understand how many of these bags can fit in the back of the car.
And speaking of car, um, the other thing that we needed to discuss was fuel.
Yeah, fuel. Do not be running around with anything less than half a tank of gas. When your car gets to half a tank of gas, it's not that hard to stop.
Yeah, just fill it up.
Just fill it up.
It makes gas cheaper.
If you have a quarter of a tank of gas and you work 7 minutes down the road, that's probably acceptable. Probably.
Yeah.
But I work an hour down the road. A quarter of a tank of gas with the potential of sitting in traffic is not acceptable.
Yeah, if it's cold outside and you get stuck in traffic at night and your car dies, I mean, people have frozen to death.
Yep.
Sitting in their cars trying to stay warm.
Yep.
And they ran out of fuel.
And if you think about it, in northern states, your electric car sitting on a frozen freeway waiting for traffic to clear, there's a good likelihood that it dies sitting in traffic and you freeze it to death.
Yeah, which causes traffic to get backed up.
So, obviously, your car may run out of fuel, but not if you keep it full.
We forgot to discuss when.
When?
When to bug out. So, and what I mean by when is, do I leave immediately?
Yeah.
Or do I wait? If I wait, how long do I wait? Some scenarios that you'd want to leave immediately would be the non-apocalyptic scenarios. A hurricane's coming.
Yep.
You don't want to wait to the last minute, because the majority of the people are going to be waiting to the last minute. Those are the people who go to the gas station and there's no more fuel.
Yep.
You know, the LA fires. You don't want to stick around. You know?
Yeah. There was a video recently from the LA fires where I'm assuming it was a husband and wife, because you never see the people, but you hear her and him, and he's talking and she's talking, and they're responding to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driving through the fires, trying to get to this tunnel that goes under this mountain area and to the other side. Well, everything's on fire around them. They get into the tunnel, and even the tunnel is flat full of smoke. So they still can barely see from me and you to that tree over there.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get to the other side of the tunnel, guess what's on the other side of the tunnel? More fire. More fire than was on the other side that they came from. And so you can tell they should have already been gone.
Yeah, they literally waited the last minute.
They should have been gone probably hours to probably 24 hours before they left. It was a horrendous amount of fire on the other side of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they get so worked up about their stuff.
Yeah. Your stuff's either going to still be there when you come back, or it's not.
Yeah, and I'm even a house. Like, I get it. Houses are expensive, but you can rebuild a house. You can't replace your life. So sticking around in an event like that, even just, if you know that something like this is come up, pack up and leave. There's no sense in sticking around,
because the most important thing is your life.
Yeah,
and your family's life.
Exactly.
And so, I've got heirlooms in my house that I would hate to lose. I have a handmade plastered eagle with my last name and a hand carved wooden banner under it that my grandfather made. And it'd suck. It would suck to lose it. I have guns that were given to me by grandparents who are dead and gone. And it would suck to lose that. But at the end of the day, if me, my wife, and my children's lives are saved, those things don't matter.
Yeah, and again, we can go back to making a list of those items. If you already had a plan and already had a list of the items that need to go, and you have the extra room, take the sentimental stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
for
know?
sure. Well, and like, obviously, when it comes to guns, right? Sentimental guns. A gun is an important bug out accessory, depending on the situation. Obviously, I firmly believe in the Second Amendment, as we both do. I think you should understand the guns that you own, how to use them safely, how to use them efficiently, effectively. And obviously, there are people that I do not believe should own a weapon, right? Now, if you are free and clear of any mental reasons, mental reasons is essentially the only reason why I believe you shouldn't be able to own a firearm. I think if you have committed crimes and you have served your time and learned from them, it should be reinstated. The only people that I believe should not are very, very few people.
Yeah.
I carry my pistol everywhere I go, and I think everyone should own a pistol and carry it everywhere they go.
Mm-hmm.
A rifle. A rifle is a very effective tool and weapon because an AR, for instance, in a bug out situation, an AR provides not just security, but the ability to take game if necessary.
Oh yeah.
Because if it's going to take me 72 hours to get home, I'm going to have to eat in 72 hours. It's you can go without it.
Yeah, you don't have
You
to.
you can go without it, but 72 hours of hoofing it,
Yeah, you're gonna
you're
need the
gonna
energy.
be exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's just a mental and make you feel better, you're gonna want to eat. And so that AR-15 is not just a tool for self-defense, but potentially food if necessary.
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at sentimental guns versus useful guns, I'll be honest with you. I'm probably grabbing my AR instead of my grandfather's double barrel 410 shotgun.
Yeah.
Like, because 30 rounds is better than 2
Oh
rounds at a
yeah.
time.
Yeah, and lugging around that shotgun ammo. Yeah, I have firearms that I do believe that if I needed to get out quick, that are important to me. They were handed down from my
Yeah,
grandfather, and
yeah.
I'd leave them.
I'd leave.
You know,
I have
but
a 32 revolver from my great grandmother who is also passed. It's not an effective bug out gun
mm,
because it takes 32 Smith and Wesson, which is extremely hard to come by.
oh yeah,
I've only ever bought one brand new box of what they call target load or wad cutters. And so it's not a round like what most of us would think about. It is flat with the brass. It is even with the brass, and it's just soft lead. It's not accurate for anything. It is purely effective for up close self defense.
yeah,
if you're going to have to use it for self defense. It's not even accurate. I don't even know why it's called target load. It's not accurate to use at the range to learn to shoot at any distance with a revolver. One, you should never be shooting at a distance with a revolver. That's not what it's designed for.
yeah.
But
I believe it's for familiarization, firearm familiarization.
yeah, that's literally all it's effective for.
Yeah,
But so I'm leaving the sentimental firearms
yeah.
and I'm grabbing my AR. It's got a strap. It carries up to 32 rounds in one magazine. I have 2 of them. And so I will probably have mine. My wife will have hers. And it's not something I have to physically carry in my hands versus the shotgun, which doesn't have a strap.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 1971 or 72 Sears and Roebuck double barrel 410 shotgun. It wasn't even designed to take and strap it to your body in any shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah,
Like the sling would have to be manufactured to put on there, and I don't have time for that. I need the sling that I need a weapon that is a tool and a weapon and designed to be carried without my hands when necessary.
mm-hmm. The last thing that we'd like to discuss in this video, and this sort of will tie into the next video that we'll be doing, is the who are you bugging out with?
Yeah,
The community.
yeah,
And we wrote down some of the important things that we felt like were important, and we'll expand on those a little bit. But like-minded individuals, same faith, skilled,
oh, Oh,
got it. Um, military law enforcement trained, if possible,
yeah,
and the size of
yeah.
the
How many
people.
people are you taking with
Yeah,
you?
how many people?
Um, and so it's a that's very dependent on situation. Say I'm on my way home from work. Obviously, I'm the only one I'm taking with me. But where am I going?
Yeah.
I'm going to get my family. Where are you going when you leave work? You've got the biggest task, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say I'm at work. I've just got to get home to my wife and kids.
Yep.
But you are bugging out to my location.
Yeah, this location.
And so if you're at work, you've got to get home, gather loved ones, and then get to my location.
Mm-hmm.
So like you really have the biggest stake in this portion here.
Yeah, when it comes to planning,
Yeah.
yeah, my my planning is a lot more extensive than yours. Um, but that doesn't mean that Ben's just like, I don't need to plan, because he still has to get home from wherever he's at. Um, and so we kind of brought this up just a few seconds ago. Like this is the location this is my bug out location, along with Ben's. Ben's would be considered a bug in location.
Yeah. Mine is a get home situation
Yeah,
to bug in and not bug out.
and in what we call apocalyptic scenarios, even if my house burnt down,
Mm-hmm.
this is probably where I'm going to be resting my head. And the reason why that this is the place where I chose to go, and the reason why Ben is allowing me to come to his property, to his home, is because we are like minded.
Mm-hmm.
We share the same faith, um,
The same
the
values.
same values. We, he knows that I'm skilled, and a lot of our skills are either the same or related, but we have skills that build on each other.
Yeah, and we have the ability to take people in and train them
Mm-hmm.
because of the difference in our skills and the similarities in our
Yep.
skills. And so it would be easier for us to slowly work people into the community.
Yeah.
Which we will get to that in a different video. But
Yep. One I think this will be the last thing we discuss in this video, and we sort of touched on it, is the difference between owning the property that you'll be bugging out to, or bugging in, I guess, and then not owning the property, like in my situation where I'm bugging out.
mm-hmm.
So, you know, you're not just going to pick a random Joe and be like, hey, man, if something happens, come on to my place.
Yep.
You know, because you don't really know this person. Like, he's or she, or potentially their entire family is going to be living with you potentially for an extensive amount of time.
Yeah.
And, you want to know who it is. You want to know that you can trust them.
Yeah, especially initially. You may be able to work people in much later, but initially your initial bug out group needs to be people that you know have the skills to assist. They also need to be willing to assist to some degree in making sure that that area is already prepared.
Yeah, so
Because if you just got some dude that you go to church with, that you're friends with, and he does have some skills, and he's like, hey man, anything ever happens, I'm coming to your place. Yeah, I mean, I want to let him come, right? I want to let him join. I want to let him be part of the community. but I need to improve upon my garden area.
Yeah, so coming from that guy,
Like,
that guy that's coming to Ben's property, anytime I have free time, one, I love hanging out with Ben, but anytime I can come over here, if he has a plan for the millstone, I want to be involved. Like, I want to help. I want to, whether it's cutting down trees, we'll be damming up the creek this winter.
building a range.
Yeah, we built a range out here.
We're going to build a bigger range.
Yeah, we have plans for putting in the cast iron stove or oven. Um, I want to be involved because I know that if something happens, that I'm going to be here. I don't want to be living off somebody else's back.
Yeah.
I want to provide. If I can't provide financially, which I try to, but I can at least provide my time. So if you're that guy that has, that doesn't have the property like Ben does, like I live in a neighborhood. I'm surrounded by people I don't know. We have chickens, we have a garden, but I don't have the means to secure it. So, my plan now is to come to Ben's. Now, that's not the end all be all because I also have plans to acquire my own property. Now, ideally, I would like to have property either bordering this location or very close. But yeah.
So make sure that the people that are coming to your bug out location are prepared to help before a bug out situation,
Oh, yeah.
and that they have the skills and the willingness to help during a bug out situation or bug in situation. Because once you get here, you're no longer bugging out, right?
Yep.
You're now bugging in. Because your bug out location should not be temporary unless it's just a small crisis like the wild. I don't want to say that those are small, but
Yeah.
a inconvenient crisis or a displacement crisis. But displacement is typically going to be temporary.
Yeah.
But say a true economic or apocalyptic event, and by apocalyptic we don't literally mean like the world ended, but like let's say a civil war in America, enemy troops in America, economic collapse, a total economic collapse. You're going to want community. Without community, you're not going to survive or thrive. And it's already going to be hard to survive in an economic collapse.
Yeah, your goal is to thrive, not survive.
Yeah, because thriving means you grow, and surviving just means you exist to exist. Like you're just existing to work to exist, versus thriving, you work and you multiply and you grow your community and you continue to live life and enjoy life. But survival is not enjoying. It's not enjoyable. Survival is not enjoyable. So when, where, why, and who has all been covered. We thank y'all for joining us. We hope y'all enjoyed it. And
don't forget to like and subscribe so we can get this information out to more people.
Yes.
We want to get this information out to as many people as possible.
Because we want everybody to thrive.
Yeah.
We want everybody to be able to band together where they can, build a community, have like-minded people, and thrive.
And we don't want other people trying to steal our stuff.
Yeah, that's true. So we appreciate y'all joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Share it with all your friends. Let them know. Oh, I'm an old man.